Welcome back to the Tree of Life Crochet Along. This is going to be part 67. We're going to start off on the back of the work, and let's take a look at the pattern. And it says to make 3 rows of single crochets and then start on the trees. And it has them numbered 1 through 3, but I am numbering them differently because this 1 through 3 is, this puts the odd numbers on the wrong side of the row and vice versa. So I'm just making it, I'm just 42, 43, 44 instead of 1, 2, and 3, because every single odd row is worked on the front so far, and I just don't want it to mess me up. So this is what I'm doing, and we're going to be adding our stitch marker, so it's going to be a short video, and I'm just going to make this a short video and then start on the trees in the next video. We're going to be placing a couple of stitch markers, so go ahead and grab your stitch markers, and I'm just using yarn like I did before on the previous trees graph. Just a couple is all you need, and we're going to be placing it on the 48th stitch of the second row that we'll be doing. And here's an example or an explanation of why the stitch marker is in the stitch after a certain number, like after number 48. Then it's in the next stitch on the back side of the Afghan. You know, if you're going to put a stitch marker in every 10th stitch, then you'll count on the right side, the first row, all the way up to 10, put a stitch marker, and then 10 again, and put a stitch marker. And then when you turn your work, you're on the wrong side, and then you come back and your stitch marker is going to be on stitch number 1, and count up to 10, and then it's going to be on stitch number 1 again. It's always going to be on the in the stitch after that number that you're counting to. Okay, I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but let's get started. Okay, like before, I'm going to count in increments of 20 just to keep up with it, to make sure I get my stitch markers in the right stitch. That's pretty important. That's the basis, what we go off of to check to make sure we have the right amount of stitches in each row above this in the trees graph. So I'm going to count up to 20 and then mark 20, comma, and then I'll do 20 again, and then I'll put 40, and then, you know, all the way up to, and then I'll do the 8 because we have to put a stitch marker in 48. So we already have our first single crochet in, and if you don't, go ahead and put that first single crochet in to the first stitch, and we're going to count up to 20. This will be 2, 3, single crochet into every single crochet, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, Well, I have to do my 20 over, excuse me. 20. Okay, and now just because it's easier for me to count in increments of 20, that's why I'm doing this. I'm going to write 20 down, comma, and then I'm going to do it again. 1, 2, 3, and this part is probably really boring to you. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Okay, so that's 20. Actually, we are just counting in single crochets across on this first row. We're not putting in our stitch markers. This is the back of the work, so we're going to wait till the next row to put in our stitch markers. So keep counting in increments of 20 all the way down the row, and we should end up with 144 stitches. Just, you know, try to keep up with it because it's important that we know we have 144 single crochets in this row, and I will see you at the end of this row. Alrighty, I am to 140, so I know that I should have 4 more stitches left, and I'm going to go ahead and place them. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and be sure to pick up both loops. Seems a little weird picking up both loops after going through the divider, picking up just one loop. Okay, so that's 144 stitches across. Chain 1, turn that corner and put a single crochet into that very first stitch. Focus it there on that stitch. Okay, and I'm going to turn my Afghan, and now we're going to put our stitch markers in. This row we're going to count, I'm going to count in increments of 20 until I get to 40, and then I'm going to count 8 and then put a stitch marker in that stitch. Okay, so I already have my first one. We're going to put a single crochet into every single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Count all the way up to 48, and I'm going to mark it down on my paper to make sure I have my stitch count right, and I will see you at stitch number 48. Alrighty, I've made my 48 single crochets, and we're going to place a stitch marker into that 48th single crochet, and I'm just using a piece of yarn. Okay, go into that stitch under those 2 loops. To add that stitch marker to your stitch, and you can use any stitch marker you want. I've used bobby pins, safety pins. actual stitch markers. Okay, and what we want to do is let the stitch marker fall towards you on the front of the work, and that helps us know automatically where that stitch marker falls to, whether it's the front or the back, without even thinking about which side we're on. Now we are going to add 48 more stitches, more single crochets, and I'm going to start over counting up to 48, go into that very next stitch and start counting. 1, 2 single crochets, 3 single crochets, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, go all the way up to 48, and I will meet you back here at number 48 single crochet. Alrighty, I am up to number 40, and we need 48, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 6, 7, and 48, and that's the one we're going to put our second stitch marker into. So let me grab my stitch marker. Okay, and we're going to go under, right into that last stitch under those 2 loops under that V, and add our stitch marker. Alrighty, and we want it to fall to the front like the last one. And now, since we're doing this blanket in 3 sets of 48, then we know that we should have 48 stitches left. So if you count your stitches and you have 48, then you're right on track. And if you're short, you might have to add one. Hopefully you're right on track, and I'll see you here. Go into the next stitch and start counting. 1, 2, single crochet all the way down to the end, and I'll meet you at the end. Alrighty, here we are at the end of the row, and you should have 144 stitches all together. Okay, so chain 1, turn and put a single crochet into that first single crochet. Okay, let's turn our work, and what we're going to do is put a single crochet into every stitch all the way back. And if you're counting, then whenever you get all the way up to 48, then your 48th stitch will be in this stitch before your stitch marker, right? Let me see. We'll count, and when we get to here, then I'll come back. Alrighty, yes, when you get to number 48 on the back side, then your stitch will be 1 stitch before your stitch marker. Okay, just like that. And the very next stitch where the stitch marker is, that's going to be number 1 if you're starting over and counting up to 48 again. 1, 2, and go all the way up to 48, and you should land in the stitch before your stitch marker for number 48, and I'll see you at number 48. Okay, I just have a couple left. 47, 48. Okay, so we're right on track. And then I'm going to start over and make sure I have 48 stitches remaining in this row all the way to the end. So in your next stitch, the one with the stitch marker on the back of the row, that's going to be your number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and go all the way up to 48, all the way to the end with single crochets, and I will meet you here at the end of the row. Alrighty, I'm at 45, 46, 47, 48. Okay, let's go ahead and chain 1, turn, and put a single crochet into that very first single crochet. And we are ready for the next row, for the next video, and that will be the beginning of the second set of trees. So I'm pretty excited, and I'm gonna do them with you. Even though I did the first set with you, I don't want to leave you out in the cold. And these were, you know, we were starting off and they were going a little slow, and we're more familiar with these stitches now. And I think maybe the next set of trees will go a little faster and easier for us. But I'm really loving this Afghan so far, and I hope you are too. And I will see you in the next video.